Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble home in Livingston, Montana. In other words, mi casa, su casa. That means my home is your home in Spanish. Okay, what I decided to do today is tell a story. So if you don't like my storytelling, you're politely excused. Or whatever here. Okay, now this isn't a childhood story. This is one that's a little bit, well, all my stories seem to be ancient, if you will, but this was back when I was taking basic training in the United States Army at Fort Lewis, Washington, out there by Tacoma, Seattle. You guys know what I'm talking about. In other words, Fort Lewis, Washington is the headquarters of 6th Army. That's fact, too. Matter of fact, I met the general of 6th Army, at one time back in my day. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As anybody knows, as you're going through boot camp, they put you through all kinds of stuff, like, running and exercises and fighting each other with, sticks with, these big balls of cloth on the end of them, so you don't get real hurt. And, running across balance beams and doing your fair share of push-ups. Boy, I remember that was probably drill sergeant's favorite deal, was them push-ups, and learning how to march and yes sir, no sir, and getting introduced into the military life, I'm talking about, military uniform code of justice and the military uniform code of conduct and all that stuff, and that's what basic training is all about. But really, it's to mostly get you orientated, that to the fact that you are more than likely going to end up in combat. You are more than likely, if you didn't pay attention to them drill sergeants, going to die, and to get you to shoot a rifle straight and all that. Because some of these jokers that I went to basic training with, had never even seen a rifle before. Some of these hoodlums from these big cities and stuff, I couldn't believe it, man. I really couldn't believe it. When I went in the service, I was well schooled on old crappy rifles. I used to have an old 30-30 at one time. I had a double-barrel shotgun at one time. I had a 1903 Springfield Armory 30-06 and on like that, Well, anyway, I get into basic training and we start into the regiment. They issue your clothes, cut your hair, and you get into the whole thing of getting up at 4:30 in the morning and going to bed at 10 o'clock at night and running in classes and all that stuff in between. And I'm telling you, they did things to us like make us crawl towards live machine gun fire, go through gas, get gassed. I'm not kidding you. Stuff that double you over and like that, and you thought you were going to cry a river of tears. Well, you actually did cry a river of tears. Are you following me here? They just put you through hell, I mean, not as bad as the Navy SEALs and probably the Marines, but it's bad enough, I mean, you either make it, they've got a certain set of parameters, and you must make those parameters or whatever have you, or you have to take basic training all over again until you pass all that junk. Okay, this one particular day, the drill sergeants fall us out. We had to get up every morning at 4:30, and we had to be over near the mess hall by about 5, and we had to do a bunch of pull-ups, before we can go in the mess hall and all that kind of stuff. Because basically, I think they wanted us all 8, shit-showered and shaved, by about 6 a.m. Well, anyway, we're out there standing in, regular formation after breakfast is all over with and whatnot have you. And the old drill sergeants, they were always screaming at us and calling us ladies and maggots and all kinds of stuff. Some of them people deserved it. I didn't because I was a perfect angel. I'm just kidding you. Don't get tight. But anyway, one of these drill sergeants is prancing around like his shit didn't stink and everything. He goes, "Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to introduce you to the grenade. You will learn how to handle the grenade." And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, great, man. What the hell are you going to put us? They're going to, stick us out in the field and throw grenades at us and stuff like that." That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I'm just kidding, but they went on and on, and all that stuff, and if you don't properly know how to handle the grenade by the time we get done with you, you will die. And they were always telling us that we were going to die, and all that crap. Well, anyway, they run us. Everywhere we went, they run us, by the way. Sometimes they would make us do what they call a double time. And, well, that's running, but at a relatively slow pace. And sometimes we just got to straight up march, which wasn't, but they took turns. They'd march us double times out into these particular, whatever, tracks, fields, whatever torture that they were going to put us to for the day. And they take us out to the grenade range. Now, you'd have to understand this grenade range. You had a concrete barrier, basically, that was about, on the average guy, it was at least belly high, if not a little bit higher, okay? And every spot along this great big wall was two pieces of concrete coming out, two walls of concrete coming out like this. And right in the middle, you had this vent. You had this hole in the concrete. That's in case somebody fumbled a grenade and they could kick it down in that hole and it would go way down into the earth real quick and blow up and nobody'd get hurt, And this story isn't about that, but I actually did see a drill sergeant have to use one of those. I had to kick a grenade down because the guy fumbled it. But the thing that I witnessed out there on the grenade range, to me, was a lot funnier than that. Okay, the first thing they did was set us all down on these bleachers, and there was this plexiglass, a pretty thick plexiglass, so that we could look out on the grenade field, but we were sitting back far enough, where we supposedly wouldn't get hit with any shrapnel and on like this, So they get out there, these drill sergeants, and they're screaming orders at us and telling us we got to do this, and they have a grenade, we used to call them pineapples, them fragmentation grenades, because here's my little YouTube rock, but the grenade had bumps or squares cut out. The hide wasn't protected. The hide of the fragmentation grenade wasn't perfectly smooth. It was chunked, like this. That way, when the grenade blew up, it would, these square little pieces would blow all over the place. That was the whole idea, in a 360-degree circle. And those grenades weighed 3.5 pounds back in the day, and we called them frags. Anyway, they spent quite a while showing us these grenades and showing us how they worked and everything. And basically, you had the top of a grenade just like this. And what it was is you had a pin, and there was like a key ring like this and a pin that went through the top of the grenade. Well, you pulled that pin out like that, and what that basically did was start the arming process. It was just the beginning of the arming process, but you pulled that pin out like that because you could put that pin back in there and everything being equal, and that grenade would not go off. Okay, on one side of the grenade there was this handle that went down, and you were supposed to grab this handle and pointed towards the front like this, because that pin was right on the side like that. And that handle right there was called a charging handle, and it was hooked up into that cap, that charging cap or whatever have you. But it was only when you came back. The whole idea was to put the grenade out like this, pull the pin like this, cock it back and hold it by your ear. This is no kidding. You're actually supposed to point it wherever you were going to throw this thing, and then you'd heave it just as far as you could, or wherever your target was, whatever you were going to blow up. You understand? Because when you would let go of the grenade, the handle would fly off. And at that point in time, there was nothing you could do. That grenade was armed, and it was going to blow off. Now, they had grenades that were like, 5-second grenades, 8-second grenades, and like that. They had different timed grenades, but they all worked like that. They all had that charging handle that had to come off. That pin had to be pulled, and like that. And once a pin was pulled, the charging handle because when you threw it like that, you kept a hold of the charging handle, but when you threw it, that thing would go, you could almost hear it go click, click, it would go flying up and, flying away from the main body of the grenade, and the grenade was armed, and it was going to blow up in like 5 seconds or whatever have you. Well, I get down there, and it's my turn, and there was the meanest drill sergeant you ever seen in your life. I mean, this guy was only like about 5'5", and he was built like Popeye, tattoos all over his place, Mom, and we make better bombs or something. I don't know, but this guy here, he was nobody to fool with you. He took his job very seriously, because he had to, because if you got out there and started fumbling these grenades around, somebody was going to die. Well, I get up there, and it's my turn. On this particular exercise, you got to throw 2 grenades. Now, this guy, he gives me my grenade and everything, but he grabs me by both wrists. I mean, he just, as a matter of fact, he squeezed my wrist so hard, he almost caused the grenade to pop out of my hand, And he looked me right in the eye and he says, "Troop," he said, "do you understand what this man's army wants you to do with this grenade and all this stuff?" And I said, "Yes, Sergeant, I understand what I'm supposed to do and all this other stuff and all that." And he kept a real firm grip on both my hands, wouldn't let me do anything until he was assured, because he just kept staring at me right in the eyes, until he was assured that I was going to be able to pull that pin out, point, cock a grenade back there by my ear, and just throw it over that concrete wall. And what our targets were just these old tires that were laying out there about, I don't know, like 40 yards or something like that. Because when you throw the grenade, you get down. Real quick, you get down behind that wall, and that's all. And the grenade would blow up, and that would be the end of it. And you got to throw another one, and if you made it through that, well, you made it, Well, there's this guy. There's this guy in our unit. As a matter of fact, he was in my platoon, and all this other stuff. And he gets up there, and he was a real nice guy and everything, but you could tell he wasn't the sportsman type or nothing like that. In fact, he told me he was an accountant before he got drafted into the Vietnam, or headed to Vietnam more than likely. A lot of us were at that time. But he was an accountant, Anyway, I'm watching this guy pretty close, because I'm thinking, man, I don't know if this guy's ever seen a softball in his day or played any baseball or anything like that, and he gets down there and he starts going through the whole drill. The drill sergeant's got a hold of him like that and making sure he was steadfast and he knew what he was doing and everything like that. So the drill sergeant lets him, lets him go and told him to release, or whatever their command was at the time. And so this guy pulls the pin out, holds his hand out like this, and you know how girls like to throw softballs and stuff like that? Come on, guys, they just kind of go, like that. That's exactly what this clown did. He just took the grenade like this and he only threw it about 10 feet past that concrete wall, man. I kid you not, man. And boy, that drill sergeant just jumped on him. I mean, just literally jumped on him, mostly to cover him up, because he, smacked him around a little bit later on. And man, that grenade went off and it lifted those guys up that concrete about like that, and all that. And I never had ever forgot that. Now, I don't know if you folks find that very funny or not, but I found it quite hilarious because once that was all over, that drill sergeant picked this guy up, slapped the Chevrolet shit out of him, excuse my French, but because they could do that back in them days. You don't do that now. I don't even know how they train troops, but you can't physically touch these recruits from what I understand. But yeah, that guy, he just about, man, if he would have fumbled that in the bunker or whatever have you, well, if the drill sergeant could have kicked it down that hole, that would have been all well and good and everything. But we were all laughing and chuckling to ourselves because nobody got hurt, but that drill sergeant got the shit scared right out of him. Man, I'm telling you, you don't want to take a live grenade and just do that number. You just don't, Okay, that's my story. Nobody died. We all lived. How many minutes do I got into this? 17 minutes. That's way too long. Way too long. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to my story. I'm going to keep telling them whether people like it or not. I don't care, And we'll see you on down the trail. Adios, my friends. Did I say we'll see you? Yeah, see you on down the trail. Sometimes I forget to say that, I'm burning daylight. Adios.